In prior videos, I had been thinking through a lot of history and biblical prophecies trying to piece together who the they are who appear to be working for Satan and causing all the problems. And I came to some conclusion that the most dedicated groups of dragon worshippers you can trace from the ancient Ubaid culture to Assyrians to Egypt to Scythia to Tartaria and Wales. Because these pharaohs, order of dragons, witches, vampires, etc., they just move all around throughout history, creating evil empires. And you know them by their fruits, which are idolatry, enslavement, destruction, murder, witchcraft, sorcery, pharmakia, sexual perversion, vampirism, ancestor worship or necromancy, polytheism, and all things that God warns about in His Word. And this photo that I'm showing is one of British Zionists, or Knights of the Crown. There's also a Spencer Royal in there and some other religious leaders, so-called, who were part of the Jerusalem Church in 1922 prior to Israel becoming a nation. So I've been reading books, and one by Dr. Joy Pugh, who is also from Georgia and has been researching over 30 years, and her book is titled Beguiled, Eden to Armageddon, Volume 1 is the one that I'm reading. And in her book, she ties the groups that I mentioned above, such as the Scythians, together with the Rev 29ers and current British imperialist monarchs, i.e. Wales. And this actually ties into what is going on now in the Middle East and in the UK. And I'm just going to read some excerpts from her book. She says, Haj Amin al-Husani, leader of Arab Palestine and Nazi agent funded through Germany, during the British Mandate period, which we've talked about, which was before Israel became a nation, attacked both Arabs and Jews to cause the deaths of true Hebraic lineages. Prior to Israel becoming a nation, Jews and Palestinians lived in peace, which is not what the Khazarians wanted. She says that Hitler was a Rothschild. And Rothschilds are Khazars, or Ashkenazi Jews. And the entire point of Zionist Israel was to establish a place for the Khazar Jews, the Rev 29ers, who follow the Babylonian Talmud and ancient Kabbalah rituals. See my video titled Knesset Menorah. She says mixed Jews and their ancestors, which included Hitler and Rothschild ancestors, were a group called the Chatti, who settled Germany. Their descendants were Hessians from the land of Hatti. They're counterfeit Jews, who are the ones Jesus called vipers and Antichrist to their face. His words are prophetic because Scripture implies the coming Antichrist has Assyrian connections. It was the Assyrian Khazars, or the Ashkenazi, who removed Russia's Tsar, established Nazi rule over Germany, and formed the State of Israel, and now control the Pope. The Ashkenazi royalty behind all of this are the same German royals who changed their name to Windsor. And I don't know if that's true, but it definitely would make sense because, as we've shown, they are the crown who are responsible for the founding of modern-day Zionist Israel. And there's no doubt about that. You can figure that out in 45 minutes on the internet, or watch my video titled Jerusalem. Okay, so reading on in the section of her book titled Gog and Magog from the Old British Empire. And when she's talking about the Old British Empire, I know that's definitely Rome more recently, but I think what she's referring to is what I was saying earlier, which is that they just moved around from place to place, creating empires of evil, which is part of what is depicted in Nebuchadnezzar's statue. So Dr. Pugh says, Zionists are the synagogue of Satan, and because of how near they are to fulfilling their evil plans to control the world, God's prophesied birth pangs have begun. And talking into prophecy, she says, according to prophecy, Iran, biblically known as Persia, will ignite our world into two final conflicts during God's tribulation period. Ezekiel prophesied about a battle of Gog and Magog, where three countries, connected once to the old British Empire, became major players under a united army of Gog who invades Israel. So I'm just going to read from Ezekiel 38. 4 and 5 says, And I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with one shield and helmet. And unfortunately for Gog's united army, which is Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, Ezekiel says they will turn on each other as terrible destruction begins to befall the earth. And that's in Ezekiel 38:14-23. Okay, so Dr. Pugh says, Zionists are secretly manipulating the children of Ishmael, or Muslims and Arabs, to attack Israel. Zionists running the country are the synagogue of Satan, who are desperately trying to gather pure Hebrews in one place, promising them this is what God always wanted. Satan's lineage, deceitfully coordinating the Muslim forces of Gog, like they did in the Crusades, wants the promised land without any of God's pure Israelite Hebraic lineage remaining after Israel is attacked. Royal serpents, such as the secret Khazar royalty that rules Britain, are behind the plot and are hoping to not only destroy Isaac's lineage, but Ishmael's as well, because they're kin. Abraham's children are being manipulated like pawns against each other to benefit the royal bloodlines of the Illuminati. Zionists are evil Khazar Jews having no right to God's promised land. They are impostors in Gog and Magog prophecy. They were circumcised trying to play as God's children, but following mixed religious doctrines of Mosaic law and Babylonian Talmud filled with Kabbalah. So Gog and Magog, they were giants, half viper, half man. According to Greeks, Gog and Magog's offspring were Scythians. Recorded historically by Herodotus, Scythians were Magog's descendants who drank blood from the humans they killed. And these Scythians, they are mentioned many times in my videos because of the fact that European heraldry is based on their artwork. And I talked about a lot of their satanic practices, which were the same ones I mentioned before: idolatry, destruction, murder, witchcraft, sorcery, pharmakia, sexual perversion, ancestor worship or necromancy, polytheism, and vampirism. But Dr. Pugh in her book says that the evil Scythian lineage eventually became known as Khazar, which I definitely did not know this. But I guess I did suspect that the Windsors were Scythian because, in addition to the heraldry connection, King Charles III claims descent from Vlad Dracul, who is a Scythian, and he wants to be Prince of Transylvania. And Transylvania is where the Tartaria tablets were found, which predate Sumerian writing, and who archaeologists and Assyriologists, including the British Knight Assyriologist, says are Scythian in origin, the Tartaria tablets. So back to Dr. Pugh's book, she says, King Joseph of Khazaria claimed to be a descendant of Magog's nephew Togarmah. She says, Sunni scholar Ibn Kathir during the 14th century recorded Khazar as being direct descendants of Gog and Magog. Khazar filled Persia and mixed with Arabs and Jews, but it was the purest viper lineage of Khazar who settled in Britain. And in fact, London considers Gog and Magog their guardians, and we've talked about that before. The two famous giants are prominently featured at Lord Mayor's City of London, and they are paraded around also in Lord Mayor's Parade annually. According to folklore, Britain was the home of these giants and their remnants who lived in rocks and caves of that area, and they were widely recorded to have terrified Europe with their human sacrifices and blood drinking. And they're still paraded around to this day in Britain. Thanks for listening.